Are you guys struggling to gain consistent RP this rank split? Now, whether you're stuck in gold, platinum, or diamond, you just feel like no matter what you do, it's just not resulting in you ranking up? Well, good, because in this video, I'm going to be giving you a ton of helpful tips and tricks so you can navigate this new rank split on World's Edge. Now, if you listen closely and watch until the end, I promise you, these tips will help you rank up faster, and you will probably make it to whichever rank you are really striving for this split. If anyone's new here, just know my channel centers around helping you all improve at Apex Legends. So without anything further, let's just dive right into this. Now that we're on World's Edge, we really got to talk about the meta here. Stormpoint is vastly different from World's Edge, so we got to talk about who's good and who's not on this map. Running the meta legends is going to be the first tip. Who you should be playing on World's Edge is really important stuff that I think a lot of players tend to overlook. And I know we all have our favorite legends, but as you move up the ranks, conforming to the meta is a really easy way to rank up faster, at least for the majority of the player base. Now I know, I always get comments like, well, I want to play Mirage or Rampart in ranked, and honestly, nobody's stopping you. But for the players who want to know what the meta is and who are my recommendations for this split, well, here we go. I've got 5 legends I'm recommending: Valkyrie, Bloodhound, Gibby, Caustic, and maybe Fuse. Fuse is definitely like the benched legend, but sometimes you got to take drastic measures, you know what I mean? The comp I would seriously recommend is Valk, Gibby, Caustic. And if you're going to use Bloodhound, then you want to sub out Gibby or Caustic as the third. Caustic is and has always been a top tier legend on World's Edge. A lot of the buildings and architecture are very friendly to his gas trap and the playstyle of a Caustic. You need a Valkyrie this split because of her ultimate. It frankly has reshaped just about every way teams rotate now. And having a Gibby for his bubble, especially on those landings from the Valkyrie ultimate, can be really critical if you find yourself landing into a crazy situation. That bubble is great for cover on the fly, and it's great to be offensive or defensive with. Now, the Valkyrie ultimate also bails out a lot of you guys who are constantly stuck rotating late. And that is a good segue into my next tip. But before I do that, if you guys are enjoying this video, you already know what to do. Go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It's free and it only takes a second of your time. The second tip is going to be learn the circles and the rotations that go with each of them. See, World's Edge has been out for many seasons at this point, but I know there's always a constant influx of new players joining Apex, especially with the current state of Warzone and any other BR out there. It's really important to start paying attention to the circles that you're going to see over and over again. Getting familiar with the zones of where they do and where they don't end is really important for positioning, but it also helps you get used to knowing all the possible rotations for those zones. There's definitely some choke points to be aware of on this map. Places like Harvester, Geyser, Landslide, Skyhook, and Launch Site all have some pretty severe choke points. And once you start getting familiar with the endgame zones, you will start to decide which choke points you want to avoid and which ones you feel okay going through. There's really no shortcut to learning this because it ultimately boils down to playing and or watching your favorite content creators do this. This is why having a Valkyrie or a Bloodhound to scan survey beacons really can help with your rotations. And I know that's a pretty simple tip, and I mentioned it in a lot of my ranked videos, but I can't lie here. It's super important. Whether I'm doing coaching sessions or even solo queuing ranked at times, I see players not utilizing the survey beacons, and it's a common mistake that a lot of people fall for. So if you have a recon legend, which you should, pay attention to where the beacons are each game, because they will vary game to game, but getting any available ring information can be critical to winning more games and having the best position. Tip number 3, do not be passive. A constant issue I see with players in ranked matches is they're playing way too passive for the moment. Look, there's a balance here. You do have to be passive at some points. You have to be assessing how much KP do you and your teammates have. Is this the right fight for us to take? Do we even have an option not to take it? Some teams will be very aggressive on you, especially in the higher elos, and you don't always get the chance to back up or leave the fight, so you have to be comfortable with taking a lot of fights. There's always going to be a gray area with this tip because there's no one-size-fits-all tip for these moments, but I do know from coaching players that a lot of teams are often looking for the perfect fight, and we need to switch that up. Because rarely in Apex will a fight just fall into your lap that is perfect, and especially in ranked. So look for your opportunities. If you or one of your teammates deal some decent damage to a team and you're able to close the gap, look to capitalize on that, and quickly. On the flip side though, if you guys trade that damage, meaning yes, you dealt 100 damage, but your teammate also took 100 damage, well, you don't necessarily have a huge advantage here, but it still could be a potential opening for a fight that you guys could try to take. I do have a couple more tips that will help you out in terms of gauging what fights to take and which ones to leave be. So here we go. Tip number 4, don't feel the need to stay in a fight too long. See, this tip really feeds off of tip number 3, but they are different. Listen closely here. One way teams get themselves into bad situations is shooting for too long without any real opportunity to end the fight and secure those kill points. One thing I'm always considering is how long has the shooting been going on? Third partying is a prominent method in Apex, we all know that. But nothing draws a crowd like a crowd, right? It's the same premise here. The more shots, the longer it goes on, the more people hear this and gravitate towards the fight. The assumption is drawn from good players that if a fight has been going on long enough, that maybe both those teams are weak, or even some of them are knocked. Good players start drooling at the opportunity to clean up these easy kill points in the higher elos. My squad and I generally have a 30-second rule. When a fight is beginning, if we don't see any real good opportunity to close the gap and force the fight within 30 seconds, then we are moving on, or at least hunkering down and not creating as much noise. This tip is something you should be practicing in any rank that you are currently in, because it does apply to every level of play in Apex. Tip number 5 is a much more advanced tip, but if you're for real about wanting to get better and improving at Apex, then I'll let you guys in on this one. It's really important to pay attention to the squads left alive and the amount of people left alive. You can always gather some quick intel here with the right assessments. Let's say it's zone 2, but there's over 10 squads alive. Well, to me, that's still a good amount of teams alive within a smaller radius of a circle. So that means it's more populated and more likely any fight I will get into will be third-partied. This shouldn't deter you completely from taking a fight though, but it is something to always be conscious of. If you get used to paying attention to how many squads are left alive, you can always do some quick math as the squads dwindle down. Let's say there's 4 squads left alive, but it's showing only 10 people alive. Well, the number count will always reflect a question mark once the people left alive is 9 or below. So with 4 squads and 10 people, that tells us 2 people are missing. Could be a solo or could be 2 duos. This info can be extremely helpful as you get to late game, because once you see something that might confirm your belief of one of those 2 scenarios, you could potentially act on it. Newer players generally don't pay attention to the squads left alive, but if you can kind of plant the seed and start looking at it from time to time, it will help you gather more information over the long run. The last tip is going to be focused on drop spots. We all know Fragment East and West is a very hot drop, and in this game that I'm showing you, it certainly was a crazy drop for us. But I do have to tell you, 4 out of 5 games, nobody went there. Like, the consensus can be that, oh, everyone will end up going Fragment, so let's avoid it. But if you pay attention to where teams actually land or don't land, you may be lucky enough to have Fragment all to yourself. I know every game will be different, but I have noticed in rank this split a lot of players are avoiding it for good reason. But be aware of where teams are going and you may find a great drop. Whether that is having Fragment all to yourself or maybe another point of interest that has great loot, but for some reason people didn't go there. If you get enough people wanting to go towards the edge of the map or trying to find a low-key drop spot, eventually the big name POIs get neglected and nobody goes there. So definitely look around while you're in the dropship to scout where teams may or may not be going. If you guys made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll consider subscribing so you don't miss out on my next upload. If anyone is interested in Apex coaching lessons, the Fiverr link below has got you covered. That's going to be it for me. Peace.